Welcome folks, this is Ken Berry at OB Farms. Today I wanted to show you how we created and planted our asparagus bed. We used some old repurposed cross ties. You see that we interlocked the corners, and then we drove some rebar down from one level to the next down into the ground to kind of lock everything in place. These guys have been treated professionally, so they should last for decades. And that's very important because your asparagus bed, you need to place it somewhere on your farm or in your yard where you don't anticipate having to move it for a long time. And that'll become apparent why that is here shortly. So this bed, I think, is 16 feet long. We really like asparagus, and several of our family members love it as well. And I bought 2-year-old crowns of Mary Washington. That's the variety we have. And so some of you guys maybe never have seen what asparagus actually turns into. So when you say asparagus, you think of this guy and that guy. But the first year that you plant the asparagus, you should not eat any of it. You want it to sprout and come up, and you see that's a tall one. You want it to collect as much sunlight as it can and transfer that energy down to the root crown. And if you've ever seen one of these, it looks like a gigantic 20-legged spider. And so I scraped about the top 3 inches of dirt off of this spot to get all the grass and most of the grass seeds out of the soil. And then I put the cross ties down, locked them in place, and then I filled this bed up with about 1/2 rich dirt that I'd found on another part of the farm, and then 1/2 potting soil that I had bought from Lowe's. And I'm not gonna add any more amendments to this ever, except for chicken poop and other organic matter that comes from the farm itself. So this bed should take care of itself for at least 20 years. And sometimes asparagus crowns can last for 10 or 20 years, or sometimes even longer. So when the asparagus comes up like this, it looks like classic asparagus. But then if you don't harvest it, it starts to look like this guy. See, it's throwing off branches. And it's still edible, but it gets more fibrous and not as tasty. And then the next stage is it really starts to branch out. And now the next stage is it'll start to put out little leaves on these branches, and it'll become a very fern-like lacy plant that will then put out a bunch of red seeds. And indeed, you can plant these seeds, but you'd have to wait 3 or 4 years before you're able to partake in your asparagus. So we're not gonna eat any of these this year. We're gonna let them just go wild and store as much solar energy as they can down in their roots. And then next year, we'll eat about 10% of what comes up. Then the next year, maybe 25%. And then each year after that, we'll eat a larger and larger percent of the harvest instead of letting it go wild like we're doing this year. And I would love to have some of this asparagus, but I know that in the long run, it's going to be much more advantageous to let it do what it does and let it store that energy down in the root crown. So there's Nisha's pink watering can, and there's some tools I left out. Granddaddy Barry would not be happy about that. I need to put those up. So next year, we're going to get to enjoy some asparagus from our asparagus bed, and then each year thereafter we'll get to enjoy a larger and larger percentage of it. And every single thing I plant here on OB Farms, I try to think long term. I try to only spend time planting perennials. I'm not really interested in planting any annuals whatsoever. That goes for the pasture, and that goes for everything that could be edible. So when the little red seeds fall off of the finished asparagus ferns, they can be planted or they can be eaten by your chickens and turned into eggs. And that's what I plan on doing with all of our asparagus seeds. I'm going to give them to the chickens. So that is our asparagus bed, and I will update this from time to time and show you how we're progressing. Oh, you might be wondering about the metal that I put down. We have just free-range chickens here, about 30 of them right now, and they would dig every bit of the dirt out of this. And so I bought some, this is called hog panel. You can buy it from your local co-op or your Tractor Supply. And then I used a metal cutter. That's the metal cutter right there I forgot to put up. Sorry, Granddaddy Barry. To cut it so that it fits. Now, chickens love to scratch, and that's how they do the bulk of their damage. But if there's metal like this interrupting their scratching arc of motion, they become quickly frustrated and they find somewhere else to scratch. And you can see right here a chicken pecked just a little bit, but quickly got discouraged and went down into the woods where she can scratch the leaves. And so this metal will save me tons of headache over the years. That's why that's in place, and I plan on leaving that there forever. Okay, guys, that's it for the asparagus bed. This is Ken Berry at OB Farms. I'll check in with you later.